Welcome everybody to the Haunted Hacker podcast number. Let's see, the last one was 100. Give me a number, Deidre, between 100 and 120.
111.
111, perfect. So this is episode number 111. Today we have Deidre Diamond from CyberSyn on the podcast with us. She's going to share a little bit of her journey as well as talk about some interesting topics. Before we get started, we'll go ahead and give an update really quick. The anniversary podcast is coming up in less than 2 weeks on the 30th. Got some surprise guests. I actually have a guest coming from Chattanooga who is the founder of the Haunted Chattanooga Ghost Tour. So that'd be pretty interesting, something different than cybersecurity. And I speak in Cyprus next week for the National Cybersecurity Conference in Cyprus. So that should be really interesting. This is my first time speaking there. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of updates. We're in a new location now, so you'll probably see a new set probably next week. Waiting on some new equipment to come in, but once we get rolling, you'll see that. And this is actually my first podcast in the new place, so I'm really excited about this. This is really cool. Unfortunately, I don't have my mic set up and all that good stuff, but we'll get there. So Deidre, tell me a little bit about your background and your journey to cyber, and also thanks a lot for coming on the show and sharing your time with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I love talking about my career only because I want more people to have it. I am one of the lucky ones. I represent the 1% founding CEOs of a tech company. In fact, because I've funded with my own money, I'm actually less than 1%. And I don't want to see that anymore. And so I do like sharing my story. There's no doubt that the experience I had is a big reason why. So grew up in California. I went to school for sociology and criminal justice. I thought I'd be a criminal attorney. Was discouraged just by the nature of being a woman. It was a lot of discouragement around me about it. And so I went into social work, and within my 90 days, I didn't realize that the California law, you could terminate me. And I was writing up management for poor behavior in interacting with these young adults under 18 who were in group homes. And when I got fired, because I went into the room where we all hang out on our breaks, and I saw this book that says, if you see something, write it down. And I did, and I got myself fired. And that was devastating for me at the time. And even though I was making minimum wage, my goal was to really help, in society. And lucky for me, I answered a little ad in the paper. This woman was doing career coaching, and it was the paper. I'm 50, so this is I graduated in '93, and she told me I should be in sales and management, and I didn't even know what the heck that was. And she did. Luckily, I come from a privileged life. My parents were able to give me some money to get some coaching from her. She taught me how to interview, and I found an ad in the paper that said, "Can you think on your feet?" And it was a group of people, small group of people, 2 serial entrepreneurial men at the top. And they hired me entry level and trained and promoted me within technical recruiting for 13 years. We went from 2 million to 89 in 5 years. I was VP in the third, making the kind of money that's crazy, and also doing really good business for people. And after 13 years, we were 500 folks, so almost $1 billion. And that's Motion Recruitment today. They're well over that now. Those two gentlemen also founded Rapid7.
Oh,
and
really?
yeah. And Rapid7 had been in business for a little bit. Maybe I think there were 18 people were there when I joined, and I was their first vice president of sales. So I was asked to take that inside sales model, which is really just good solution providing. I know how we all feel about salespeople. Anyhow, I'll talk about that in a little bit later. But and bring that inside sales to selling Nexpos. And so I did, and I went from 800,000 to 50 million in reoccurring revenue in 4 years, from 18 to 300 people. I also helped build out recruiting. sales engineering reported to me sales, and we just had a great time. Did the deal with HD Moore, those types of things, just, really rocked it. And then those founders asked me to go to one of their other software companies that needed a restart, their oldest one, content management, didn't love it, but I did what they needed me to do. Everybody retires, and I'm like, I got to do something else, with I want to get back to what I was doing. And that's when I founded CyberSN. I thought, you know what? I loved recruiting. I loved helping people find jobs. And I loved developing people and running great companies. And so after being CEO of Percussion Software, I thought, you know what? I'm gonna go put the two things I love the most: staffing and the cyber community. They're my peeps. They're social servants. They're protectors. They're givers. And they're brilliant. And so I thought, oh, I can help. They can't find each other. I hear all this noise. There's a problem. Let me go help. And that's when I founded CyberSN and realized how broken everything became in the digital era. That's how I realized I was the 1% or whatever percent I am. And I founded Secure Diversity. I built a platform. I've done a lot over the last 7 years to solve some big problems that we have. And I'm a super lucky person to have this story, and it shall not be luck anymore, right? We can't.
Exactly.
We just can't. The training. I mean, if you hear what was in all of that, it was people sticking together, people investing in people, people creating stories for people, and that's their model, whatever business it was.
Absolutely.
That's what I do.
Cool. Very cool. And our paths kind of, I think, crossed at one point unknowingly until just now. So HD is a friend of mine, and he went to Rapid7, and I actually worked for Mantech International, and I used to do pen tests for Rapid7, kind of ad hoc. Yeah. So that what's that?
We're cousins.
Yeah, distant cousins. And I too remember the newspapers. I actually graduated in '92, so I wasn't that far behind you. But yeah, it's very interesting environment that we live in now. And you're right. There's a lot of people who are very giving, but it seems like the hiring. I've always had a problem with the way that security companies hire people and what they look for, and kind of the interviewing process has always been a little, I think, a little off in most places. And we can talk about that. Listening to your career is pretty amazing, and you seem very excited about your career and passionate about what you do. And to me, that makes a world of difference. And when you're giving back to the community and helping people connect with their future, that has to be a good feeling. A lot of fulfillment there. So let's talk about the hiring process and how you how you bring the people together, and some stories about the hardships as well as the successes that you experienced in that process.
Yeah. Well, it was shocking to me after leaving the business of talent and staffing for 10 years. Really, I left because I left January of 2007 is when I started at Rapid7, and then I didn't come back for 10 years. It was really the digital era, if you will. And I had no idea what it had done to the staffing business. I thought, I'm just going to do what I do, build my armies. I had 400 last time in 5 years. I can do it again. And hit me right in the face that the digital era had made job descriptions unvaluable. No job description made any sense. And there was no common language in cybersecurity. One person, security engineer, could be 20 different things to 20 different companies. And we couldn't make matches in what I'm used to, which is moving, meaning helping fast. And it really just hit me hard. And so instantly my brain went to, I need a taxonomy. I need a common language taxonomy for every single job that could exist in cybersecurity. And I need it down to the task and the project level. And so I went out looking while we were, doing what we do. I went out looking for that person. I finally found that person. He's currently my chief security officer today. He's been with me 6 years this month. Wow. Him and his team, actually. He came from 21 years of government contracting in the same company from a from a defender to a CISO, still defending the rarest of rare. And yet running into him, he also saw the market issue and was intrigued what we were doing. And he solved this with me. And so we had this, we built an internal application that took, you know, job descriptions with managers, like, are they going to do this task? Are they going to do that task? And then any up to any 1% chance that this task or project would be associated with this title, we're asking the question. And so today, you know, we have now a public job building matching system for everybody, but we were using it strictly for ourselves. And that was just super key to being able to make this work, because the common language did not exist. And everybody was stressed out. How much time is getting wasted was unbelievable. I was shocked. I didn't know that's what had happened in the digital era. And it's security, it just has it the worst because it's the newest and the most complex. I mean, we're now at 10 categories, 45 functional roles. You can see it in our career center. When we started, it was 21, and that was 5 years ago. And so, you know, it's not to say that other disciplines don't have the same problem. They do. Ours was just worse because it was newer. It was much more complex. And who's teaching it, you know, to recruiters? I mean, nobody knew. Right? And even the hiring managers a lot of times don't know what they need, even still today. So that was critical for us to build that technology and to be able to do that the same for building a profile. We call it a profile, not a resume. And so, you know, job searching is broken. It's a terribly broken system because of content. Oh, I didn't tell you. So before the digital era, it was $5,000 to run an ad in the Sunday paper. $5,000 in the night. Oh yeah, I would run 3 every Sunday per office. And you get a little space like this, right? And then think about it. First of all, the fax is rolled up paper. Number 2 is like, that's it. Once it's run, where do you find it, you know, after somebody throws away the paper for the week or whatever, it's gone. And fast forward 10 years, I come back and the job posting digitally is a couple $100. You can leave it all year. So of course it has no value. You've got that problem. And then you've got HR having control over job descriptions where hiring managers aren't allowed to adjust them. And between those two things, it was shit show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't believe what I walked into. I thought, this is nuts. And that's why I was like, we got to solve this. And the more I started to do it, I'm like, look, this is a national security issue. We can't even find each other. We can't match to each other in a day of technology. And I was like, yeah, no. So that is my journey of the last 7 years of solving that. We have solved it. Now it's just a matter of how fast all 780,000 of us are here and getting the Fed in one place too, which I'm working on. You know, and then it's also you know, getting new people in, which is why I founded Secure Diversity and really working that angle. It's a bad time right now. You know?
I totally agree. Totally agree.
It's awful.
And when you look at, you speak about diversity, when you think about like true diversity and people in cybersecurity with those, I guess, divergent, personality traits or different mental divergence, it's even more difficult to find a job because you have to interview and you have to create an environment different than most people. Like I have Asperger's, and some of the most overwhelming interviews I've ever been on is when there's 6 people in a room and they're all firing at you one at a time. And it's overwhelming. And I don't think that as an industry, we have been cognizant of other people's needs. I think it's all been about the business unit and fulfilling numbers. HR, most of HRs that I've seen, they have maybe 2 prerequisites to find a candidate, and they just cold call everybody. I can't count how many times a week somebody contacts me wanting to know if I want to be a security guard. Where on my resume says anything about being a security guard?
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
It's sad. It's sad.
And that's for everybody. You know, I've never got a reach out with the title Vice President of Sales or CEO, and I've occupied that role for the last 20 years.
Wow.
Like, I don't even understand how this all happened. I know that Even IBM Watson stopped their staffing services because, everybody's matching garbage content to garbage content. So of course it's going to be garbage results.
And another thing I truly dislike, and by no means am I racist or biased against other countries, but if someone calls me for a job in the US and I can't really understand them because the accent is so thick, what does that tell you about the company that's hiring this third party to do the hiring? It's so disparate and nothing seems to be molded together like it should be. And right now it's a candidate's marketplace, really.
Yeah.
But the problem is that these jobs that they're advertising, the requirements aren't written well. A lot of the people that you contact on the first call have no idea, haven't even looked at your resume. So it's difficult. It's difficult, for newcomers coming into the industry, especially when they don't have a lot of experience and some of them may not have the required skill set. So it's a struggle, and hats off for coming up with a way to improve that. That's huge.
Oh yeah, game changing. Solving, searching, and matching. Those, has to be done with technology, and that's what we've done. And then you're always going to need a human to work with the people where the search and match that was done to facilitate. And, there's more recruiters than technologists at recruiting for technology. I mean, it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. And again, all industries are suffering because what are we doing? We're all going to one place to search for every job in the world. Like what? Like what? We're already in search hell of everything in our lives. And that's how jobs, which are really careers, is another thing. It's like, that whole mindset is it's just a job. It's like, where's the fostering of career in the job system? They counterproductive to each other, the system and the concept. And so, we've also taken this to that level to say, look, we all have to be in one place. And if we're all in one place and there's career support, job support, training support, resource support in a common language, then game over. We won't have this problem anymore. It's going to all come down to emotional intelligence and who retains talent. And I can't wait, because that's the power I'm giving the world, is to say, can we stop this churn madness? Like you said, you don't know until you interview if it's a good fit, not good fit. Half the time you don't even know after you interview because nobody tells you. You don't even know really what the job is. It's, it's like when that's gone, then people can really settle down and make their bed at a home, so that's what we got to focus on, because our emotional intelligence problem is huge. I mean, that's what I've been speaking a ton about this week, and what we're seeing is so scary. It was scary pre-COVID. Now it's worse scary in terms of burnout and cybersecurity professionals doing 4 jobs. I mean, we even hear the word 4 now. It used to be 2 or 3. And we know why. Everybody went remote. IT couldn't handle on their own. Security had to come in. Then you got SolarWinds, ransomware, pipeline. Oh my gosh, to the degree of 100 times more. And we're in the same capacity of supply, and demand just went through the roof, because every one of the 32 million companies in the US that was not hiring is now hiring because of those attacks and those breaches.
And it's painful. Those breaches are painful.
Painful. And we don't even know about them. I mean, so many of these companies are getting ransomware, unless you're a public company, you don't have this exposed. So everybody got smacked and woken up and scared. And as I tell people, we used to have to do outreach because cyber professionals didn't get the budgets to use agencies. We had to help them fight for it. Now the calls are just coming in, and the supply hasn't changed. So it's all going to come down to EQ, emotional intelligence. Who's going to treat these professionals correctly?
And that's the key. That's the key.
That is the key.
Culture to me is one of the main pieces I look for when I'm choosing a company. Is a culture and people. I've been talking about this in my talks for the past year, is that the ones and zeros are never going to change. The digital stuff, the technology it's technology. It's a box. But what we need to worry about are the people behind those boxes. They're actual people, not just employees, not just a programmer. They're humans with, personalities and needs just like everybody else. But I think
Yes.
as an industry, we've lost that touch, that personal touch as well.
Well,
A lot of companies I've seen have really been trying to come forward and help, I guess, raise that awareness.
yeah, I mean, you turn on the news and the world's plagued with a lack of EQ,
Yeah.
right? I mean, come on, we just take from others to give to ourselves on a regular basis as humans. It's quite disturbing. And yet we're the brightest of the brightest in this field. And so, if anybody's going to be able to do it, it's us. And that's what I tell people all the time. But emotional intelligence is a skill. It's typically a skill that was taught to salespeople, because your job is to turn, no's into yeses, which you're not going to do with anything other than positive energy, kindness, and solutions. And really, unfortunately, nobody else. And we're suffering from it now. In fact, this week I rolled out at ISC Squared Congress my behavioral standards for inclusive work environments. I've been asked for years to create what is the foundation and the framework. What is it? And it's skills that everybody needs to adopt and can be done, and we're erring on like crazy. And it's not that even the cyber leaders that are erring on it, it's the people above,
Yes.
mostly, who are calling the shots, who are handling the budgets. But again, and not to say that it isn't in our own community, but less than above. And so we see it in the attrition statistics and how often people leave jobs. It's not money. That's not what's happening.
It's environment. Yeah.
Yes, people leave people. Of course, they get more money when it comes down to it, because you're taking risk. You don't know, and it could be another place of the same or whatever, right? It's stressful. People always want to give people more money when they come on, but that's not what made them take the call.
No. And what's funny is, looking back at my career, I have I have two bosses in the past that I still stay very close to. And one of them I flew to Dallas for a talk just a couple weeks ago, and I haven't seen him in 20 years. And he shows up to my talk, and we got a chance to sit down and talk to each other. It was really cool. But those are the people that make the difference, are the people that make you feel valuable in your environment. And, during the pandemic, there were so many jobs open for cybersecurity. And it was because they transitioned to that work from home type environment. I'm one of those guys that I do the instant response. So I may go 4 or 5 days without sleep, plus the podcast, plus being a board member, on an advisory board for 2 companies, and just plus, 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 plus. And that burnout's real. That burnout's really real. But a lot of us do that to ourselves as well. I know I take on a lot when I probably shouldn't, but I love to give back to the community, to people who want to help out. And there are some companies out there that really don't want to help out. They want to succeed, and they want to, have dollar signs, but they forget about the people that are involved with them. So one of the other things I talk about quite a bit is, neurodiversity in the workplace. People with Asperger's or people on the spectrum. They're a little bit different. Doesn't mean their IQ is any less. More times out of least their IQs are probably higher. So how does, let's say, the platform and how your company, how does it address that differentiator in humans?
Yeah. I want to also make a comment on your, being up for 4 or 5 days. Something I've been saying a lot to folks is that, you all are emergency workers, and unlike like doctors and nurses, and they have places to sleep in the office. I know we're not in the office anymore, but we think back to the days where, how are we caring for those emergency workers, and understanding that a protector, like you said, you have to care for yourself, but you're a protector. Like, how do you close the computers or your terminals when there's attacks and things happening and possibilities that you're seeing. And so, it's very hard to, as a protector, to be like, okay, I'm not going to look right now, I'm done. So we must care at a greater capacity, understanding the nature of being an emergency worker and being a worker under constant stress. The rest of us have constant pressure. You've got constant stress in that you're looking for the attack. Like you're on a heightened awareness of an attack. I mean, are you serious? I mean, other than being a woman and being prey as children, no joke, as a younger, right? That's the shit that goes down. Like I can understand that heightened sense, and oh my gosh. So it's really ridiculous that people don't get that. And so for those of you that aren't, that don't have a place that gets that, find it, because they exist. It's just got to dig through all that stuff. But with neurodiversity and just in general, things that can be really easy for an unconscious bias of an interviewer or a recruiter or what have you, eventually people have to meet. And so, we can only do so much, but what we can do is what we're doing is, so professionals make a profile that is public. So, like LinkedIn is a public profile, ours are anonymous, and I mean anonymous. I don't even know who you are. I mean, again, this is built by security people, including myself with my security. This is, yes, absolutely. And so I don't need to know what you look like to match you. I don't need to know the company you're working for's name. I just need to know the industry. I don't need to know when you graduated. I just need to know if you have a degree. I don't need to know the school. Why do I need to go to the school? What the hell does that matter? I don't, whatever certs you have, great. I don't need to know the years. And so when you remove all of that, one can be anonymous and have a public profile and let employers apply to them, meaning their job sent to them, which, by the way, only using our taxonomy. I will not let these cruddy job descriptions just be pinging my professionals that come for this service, which is free. And they can decide, which also helps with imposter syndrome, because, the rejection isn't you. It's, this profile, if you will, if there is a rejection. So, that's about the best we can do from a search and match that could ever exist. In fact, the federal government's calling it blind recruiting, I found out. And I am very much in those conversations of working, government too, with the platform. And then the rest is, we can't be having recruiters who aren't emotionally intelligent talking to anybody, never mind security people. And we can't be having managers. And we do have actually a pretty bit of a challenge with our managers in emotional intelligence, because a lot of them were promoted without the training of emotional intelligence, because they were great individual contributors. And so they're struggling. And, when we're under stress, we're not at our best.
Right. I totally agree. And, the position I took at this company about 4 or 5 months ago, so I lead a blue team, and I also do red team, and also do incident response. But I was put in charge of like 16 people. And I've built teams before, but I've never built a team this large, this fast. And a lot of people aren't prepared for that type of progression, because you really have to understand people, and you really have to understand your own processes and your own thinking. And you have to check on these people, and you have to make sure they're doing okay, and they're getting what they need from you. And I think a lot of managers roll into that role as an authoritarian, right? So they think less about their people's needs and more about, this is how I'm going to run my ship. I had to do some promotions, and I had to hire some level 1s and some level 2s. So what I did was I moved 2 of my level 1s up to level 2. And, one of them had been there for quite a while, and the other one, she was, fairly new. But hearing their interest and hearing how excited they are when they get a promotion, that's what fuels me. It's not the authoritarian. It's not making rules and making sure that we're the best at what we do. No, I want to be the best at what we do, but I also want our people to be the happiest too. But I think that's really key. And another part too, that as far as like today and hiring policies and background checks and all of that, I have a background. I don't have any convictions. As a matter of fact, my charges were dropped, um, but they had to do with cybercrime, and it's public information. And I had a company, a CPA company, want to hire me to be a consultant and just come in and take a look at their business and how they operate, do a pen test, whatever. But the funny thing is that one of their guys on the security team had found my profile on the internet and found information about me. And immediately it went from, okay, we're really excited to have this guy. He's done all this pen testing to, we can't touch you because we're a CPA firm and, you've gotten into trouble. But and it doesn't matter what you do. Like once you start building a public profile out on the internet,
Yeah.
people approach you differently. And
Yeah.
how does the platform make up for that, or does it make up for that? Because eventually there has to be some sort of face-to-face, right?
Yeah. Eventually you have to have the face-to-face. I would say that you're probably going to, for anybody in that situation, is going to find that in the financial firms for sure.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to be the least capable of understanding.
Yeah.
And then on the other spectrum is going to be security software companies, who totally get it. And then there's everything in between. But as the good news is that less financial firms are trying to figure out how to get out of that too.
Right.
They're trying to figure it out. It's not that they don't want to, it's just regulations. They have regulations. A lot of people don't understand a lot of laws that are out there that are causing a lot of the churn. So for instance, the Equal Pay Act, which is a wonderful thing to have. We have to have it. It worked. The minute it went into play, we saw instant, change in equality of income, because you can't ask what somebody's making anymore. And people, on all genders got significant raises because that game was over. But on the flip side, the challenge is that it's caused that a lot of people are disturbed by, interviewing for a job to find out they can't pay what they're looking for. And that's because you can't bring somebody in over somebody else, and to readjust everybody else can be months and months
Nightmare.
of work and nightmare. And so companies aren't really ready. They're not prepared. They haven't done their analysis. And even if they did do their analysis, if it took them more than 2 months to do it, their data's old. And we all know it takes 6 months, a year, so that has caused a lot of churn. And we actually now have in the Career Center salary data for every role. We update it every month. It's everything 2 years experience on, because that's where we really play, all the way up to the C-suite. What's the lowest we see? What's the highest we see for a base salary? So at least everybody can understand what you're playing with, what you're competing with, I should say. Laws are a challenge to recruiting. Even some laws of, that were meant to be good, like anything, causes something else too. Ideally, it's less significant, like it is. It is that. And the EQ piece on finding joy and giving to others. Only managers that find joy in giving to others should be managers.
Totally agree.
Bottom line. And I want everybody to understand what emotional intelligence is. Like, what's the definition? And the definition I love the best, you can probably find it at the top of your Google search, which is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. That's the name of the game. You put your IQ and your EQ together, you're unstoppable. And by the way, that makes your personality. And the good news is your EQ doesn't cap out in terms of brain development, whereas the IQ, once the brain's fully developed, because it's a test, it's really about taking tests, the abbreviation, a person's level of intelligence measured by tests is what IQ is.
Right.
And that stops it when the brain's fully developed. It could be somewhere in somebody's 20s. Whereas EQ doesn't. So that's the hope, there's hope, there's possibility, is that, we can grow our empathy. We can grow our personal relationship skills.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It reminds me. So a year ago this month, I was literally homeless, and I just got back from the UK. I had COVID. Just got out of the hospital. Had no money in my pocket, no job, and from people in the industry and a good friend of mine, I was able to get a job and build myself back up within a year. So I think that the more people, I know it sounds bad, but I think when people struggle, they learn more empathy. They learn what's important, and how fragile and how just perfectly balanced things can be. And if something tips off, then everything can fall apart. I had to learn that the hard way, and I try to teach that to my new employees that, hey, I'm not here just as your boss. If you have something going on, we can absolutely talk about it. Because I think empathy in the workplace, especially through management, a lot of people I think are afraid to show empathy in the workplace, not just because HR lines and don't want to cross them, but also to not seem vulnerable, I guess. I see that a lot, especially with male, management and people who've been in the industry for quite a long time. They tend to follow by the book, and everything's black and white.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I was just
go
going to
ahead.
say, for those people, they really need to either get out of being a manager or adopt owning measurable agreements. Making measurable agreements, managing measurable agreements, meaning people that aren't as high in the EQ, the way to get there is to set the playing field for success. Such that one doesn't have to rely on their emotions so much, or even, and everybody should be doing this anyways. It's a part of my framework. It's where a lot of disruption comes from, is not having measurable agreements on projects and tasks and how much time it's going to take, and then following up when you make a measurable agreement and then you realize, oh, something's changed. And then right then and there, changing the measurable agreement instead of waiting later is the responsibility of us all. And if we're doing those as managers and as individuals, then there will be less emotions needed to have a great place. And so those people, again, they need to get out, or they need to adopt that. And if they do that, then they'll have more brain capacity, emotion capacity to think. The other thing is, I say this often, I'd love to drop all politicians in a war zone. And I think they ought to, in order to have their jobs. I mean, just the fact that war zones even exist is disgusting. And so let's drop them there. And I think empathy will be, I think we'll have a different game. And because you're right, people are, a lot of people are removed from what's going on. People say I must have had an old soul, but for me, I see it every day. I know how lucky I am, and how I'm just a number away from being born somewhere else where destruction is done to those places. And there's really more of that than there's more of what we have, and what even what you just went through. I mean, those people would love to have that opportunity, right? So it's just ridiculous to me that we're even in this place. And so thankfully, the stock market, because we know nothing happens without money, has caught on. Public companies that have to do more constantly. They have caught on that high EQ environments mean more money. And so because of that, there's more awareness. Awareness then translates finally at times into training. Although, I'm only seeing us be in the awareness stage right now. That ought to be what comes next. And yet when you think about that, it's like, well, who's got that training? Like I've got my training. I've been training on my companies. I've got an EQ tree and all the skills we own and learn, but like, where do you go? I mean, there's Myers-Briggs and personality stuff that really helps. It helps, but like, it's not enough. It's not, it's just a way to get in tune with an understanding, but it's not a development process of training. And so where do we deal? I mean, situational leadership is pretty rad, I must say. But again, it's not everything, you know, that teaches how to manage people based on tasks and projects, and it will make measurable agreements a lot easier, and managing up and managing down and managing sideways. And that's really operationally critical. But like, words to use and not use, and you know, win-win communication, you know, listening skills that are really truly being present. Those are skills. Like, I have gone through 17 years of training. I mean, those guys weren't just, you know, putting up companies. It was training. And then outside of you know, training in terms of transformational mind dynamics and things that I've done, where I've completely continued to transform my ability to speak words that land positively and make solutions move faster, and people you know, be turned on at a great level, which luckily I've always been able to do, but even more, you know. And so I'm with you. I love turning people on. I love giving them opportunity and showing them a way to have their, you know, help themselves. And yet there's just not enough of us.
No, absolutely not. And I think that the comment you made about the politicians, I've always said, because I was in the military twice, served during 2 wars, and what I've always said is a president should not be able to step foot in the White House unless he served in the military. Because how am I, as you know, a member of the military, supposed to respect the commander in chief if they've never been in my shoes?
Yeah.
They know nothing about the military. They just took it because they've been in politics for 40 years. I have a real problem with that too. But yeah, so the pandemic, I think, has raised a lot of unique situations as well, with hiring and with the interviewing process, and the whole, I guess, work environment as a whole has dynamically changed. And I don't know if we'll ever get back to a completely normal office situation where we're all face to face and we're sitting in cubicles, or you know, however the workplace is constructed. Have you seen a lot of change during the pandemic as far as the way people are working, and the way that they interview, and the characteristics they're looking for during those interviews when it's a working from home situation?
Yeah, you know, so I'm just about to publish a lot of stats on this, so this is good timing. You know, I get asked a lot by the journalists, you know,
Mm.
is cybersecurity a part of the Great Resignation? You know, is it happening in cybersecurity? And you know, if the Great Resignation means moving from one job to another, yes, it's been impacted much more, and mostly because of recent two things. One is even the talk of going back into the office, never mind being told they have to be in the office, or even in the office a couple of days. It's really not what the majority wants. You find
Yeah.
that senior leadership seems to be okay with it, which makes sense considering they probably have homes and kids in schools and what have you. But the individual contributors are, you know, either have moved or just have really enjoyed the time they've gained back in their lives, and they're just not willing to. And so because of that, there is much, much more resignations going on to the organizations that are doing that. And then we're also seeing just the burnout being so significant that the resignations are at a higher level. And for the first time, seeing people retire in their 40s, retire in their 50s, you know, just can't do it anymore, you know, work, it's not different in any place to them, you know. And that's really breaks my heart and scares the hell out of me as a human and society and everything else, to see how much burnout is happening. Um, and then you know, something that we've seen a lot of recent, you know, during COVID is, we all know billionaires were made, tons of billionaires were made, right? So what does that mean for the tech community? That means acquisition, acquisition, acquisition. And acquisitions cause chaos, and particularly
Mm,
already to a stressed security team. Are you serious? And the way we all handle, acquisitions is so poorly to begin with.
right.
And that on top of it's just like breaking point on the West Coast. Like you can just feel it in Silicon Valley. I have a massive presence there. We've been there a very long time, and you can just feel it. And so that's also super sad. And yeah, much more stress and burnout. And so, with our clients, it's like you have to prove to us or create with us that you have a career plan and a strategy, and you must be good people or I'm not interested, all those things. So our clients, are achieving and succeeding and, sort of never leave us, so to speak. And yet, we're not servicing everybody, right? So there's a lot of work to be done, meaning how many people just aren't even trying.
Yeah, and I know there's a ton of those people out there as well that are either intimidated by the process or would just rather not do anything. And I think the pandemic, just the general sense of anxiety because of the not knowing, and this is somewhere we've never been before. I think that plays a part. We also have a huge issue in cybersecurity, especially within the security researcher, I guess, environment, or whatever you want to call it. We have a huge issue with mental health, and I've lost, I don't know, probably 4 friends in the past year from suicide, and I think that's a mixture of overly successful, a lot of stress, burn ourselves out, stretching ourselves way too thin. Because one of my biggest problems in my career is learning how to say no. That's not something I was prepared to deal with when I got into cybersecurity. I didn't expect to be in that position where I'd have to tell people no. But the more that we take on, I think the pandemic made things a lot more difficult as well, because when you're working from home, they think that that's a luxury. Most companies think that's a luxury, and it's that's something that we're blessing you with. So therefore, if I call you, you better answer the phone no matter what time it is, and that's killing people. It literally, you never get off work.
That's super sad to hear that. That makes a lot of sense to me, that the calls are constantly coming, and it's even sadder to hear that 4 of your friends. I'm so sorry for your
Yeah.
loss. And really your community, the space that your skills is in, the red team, blue team, right? The things is the most challenged community, because they're the most misunderstood, they're the most vilified. And typically are, genius status and trouble, sometimes communicating. And so they, definitely have it the worst. And so it breaks my heart. And, working from home for a lot of professionals, while it's good, it comes with a ton of challenges too, because, a whole new lifestyle with, who we're cohabiting with, or maybe children at home during COVID. Oh my gosh. And
Can't imagine.
I can't imagine. I don't have, homeschooling and doing what we all do. Like what? So it's like, of course people, and also how about this angle too, which is, my organization, where I am like seeing people work all the time too. And I'm like, they're happy, but I don't want that to cause a problem, because even though we're liking it, doesn't mean it's good for us. So I had to think to myself, what can I do? What can I do? And one of the first things that came to my mind was, when we're all off, we're actually off.
Yeah.
Not all people get to be off when everybody else is working. A lot of us do not. And so minimally, let's make sure every bank holiday is off. I didn't realize that we had 4 that weren't. And then let's close down between Christmas and New Year's. And let's take days that where we're all off. That's one thing that I thought of. There are lots of other things. And yet I'm still thinking, because even for me, I love working, but there's less to do out in life. And so it's really easy, right? Because I don't have plans to go to this concert that I used to go to, or the live music, doesn't even exist for me anywhere anymore, unless it's Saturday, maybe now, whereas that's what I would do. Well, if I love working, I'm going to work. And so, managers need to pay attention to that. We all need to pay attention to that. And then, like you said, the ability to say no, unfortunately, having to be able to do that is, it's not easy. Who wants to tell their boss no?
No,
Or their boss or whatever?
or turn down an opportunity. Any opportunity that comes to me, it seems like I get some really great opportunities. Like I'm working with Alyssa Knight doing content creation for her new media company. And that was something that I wanted to do and I was excited about. Still am excited about it. But other opportunities come up and I may not have enough time for it, but they're friends and I want to help them out. So I don't know how to say no. And I end up working, sometimes till 2 o'clock in the morning. Next week, I give a talk in Cyprus. I have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to give the talk. I do stuff for the London police, and sometimes I get up at 4 a.m. to help them because there's no longer a time zone anymore. Like when everybody went home and worked from home during the pandemic, time zones don't exist anymore. And I think a lot of people need to be more cognizant of time zones as well. Scheduling meetings, scheduling interviews, media, they need to learn that, yes, we're all working from home. We're no longer in New York or we're no longer in the UK. Let's keep that in mind because that does add to the stress that people put on themselves, I think.
Yeah, in fact, we've seen on the West Coast, which tends to be a bit more progressive as it pertains to the treatment of humans, considering the great state of California, leading a lot of this over the years. You can tell I'm from there. Even if I wasn't, I'd say that. And I'm sitting on the East Coast, which I'm bi-coastal, and I love it too. But my point is that those organizations while they're allowing everybody to be remote, they don't want East Coast people because they don't want to have to be on calls late or early.
Right.
And that's a good thing. That means they're thinking about their mental health and they're thinking about their people. And so I'm super happy to see that. I'd like to think that you could still do it and not have to have meetings early and late, as I tell clients all the time, like, okay, but you just cut off half the country and everybody's remote. Really? Like, what do you can't work a schedule that allows for that? And think about it. And some of they're starting to again, in a talent war, you have to think that way and push back. But yeah, it is very true that time is this just flow. It's not so structured anymore. And that is a challenge for all of us. We do a lot of it, most of us, if not all of us, love structure.
Oh yeah, structure and routine, I think, are my two vices. I have to have structure and routine.
Me too.
When those get out of whack, I don't know what to do. So when somebody comes to you, or if somebody's trying to get into the industry, what would you say is probably the first thing to learn before they go out looking for that perfect career, that perfect role?
Yeah. So the first thing is understanding what role they want. And with 10 categories and 45 job functions in cybersecurity, that's the most important thing, because what happens is they go to an interview and they're sort of saying, I'm open, I'm interested in anything. And the hiring manager's like, yeah, no, I want somebody who knows they want to be a pen tester. I want somebody who knows they want to be an analyst. I want somebody, whatever it is. And yet, these entry-level folks are getting trained in probably 3 or 4 or 6 different disciplines. So that's why I launched this career center at Black Hat for free for everybody, all roles mapped, all what they are, career pathing, certification mapping, all of that. And it's just going to continue to get better and better. But that's the first thing, is really know what you're going after, so that when people can help you. It's hard to help somebody when there's so many ways they can help you. So help others help you. Do a Jerry Maguire, right? So help me help you by knowing what you're looking for, so that I can get you to the right places. If I'm a hiring manager, maybe you're, or somebody that's trying to help you. You gotta own that.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think that some, people getting into the industry as well, one of the first things they should do is learn balance, and also how to take time for yourself. There should be a class on mental health and not burning out,
Oh,
because
yeah.
the majority of us suffer from that day to day.
Yeah, my behavioral standards, which are 8 items that I just rolled out, one of them is a self-care culture. If you're an organization that is not going to have a self-care culture, forget about it. You will lose. At the end of the day, the talent war, for sure. And what that means is a culture that talks about health, a culture that supports health. I'm always talking about take some time to breathe, or sending people bullets so that they can make smoothies. When they first come to the company with green, vegetables, and I talk about that, or breathing and yoga and exercise. I used to, at 28, I weighed 310 pounds, and I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day.
Oh,
And getting very little sleep, making all kinds of money, and all of a sudden I'm in the hospital, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I want to play. I just got here, and so I transformed my life, and I became addicted to positive behaviors, or positive skills, versus the negative ones, which were eating foods that weren't food, or consuming too much food, or then not exercising and not running a schedule so that I had enough sleep. And I had to own that. And I still own that, because if I don't care for myself, I can't care for others. And so a company's culture must foster that. That's the name of the game, that we all want the same things from life. We all want support and kindness and love and wage equity and growth and opportunity and training, be around respectful people. We all want that. So let's make sure that the environment supports it, talks about it, and creates self-care. I give massages as gifts. I, take people to yoga festivals. I mean, I personally, as a leader and a manager, am thinking about doing things that are also active too, not just talking about it. So you want to spend time with me? Great. Will you go for a walk? Because, I got to get my walk in today. I'm notorious for that. Or you want to, join me for a yoga class, and then we'll go out and have a bite to eat, kind of thing. So it really is about a self-care culture, and the organizations have to own that.
absolutely. You sound like a great boss to work for, by the way.
Oh,
So we're coming to the end of the hour, and I have to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. I think this will reach a lot of people, and hit home with a lot of people, and hopefully give newcomers some insight into what they should do, and how they should go about doing it. Is there anything that you want to ask me? Any questions about the Haunted Hacker, or anything else?
I definitely want to thank you for what you're doing, and your service, and to let you know that I'm always here for you too. If there's anything I can do to help with the people you're working with, supporting, you just reach out. And on that note, we have one client. It made me think when you were talking earlier that I love all my clients, but my point is that this client needs a pen tester. They have a role open, and they're lovely, lovely people. I know the CEO. I don't personally do any recruiting, but I onboard all new clients, almost all new. So I'd love to give you that job description. Maybe you can share it around. It has the salary and everything. Lisa will put it in chat. But other than that, I just want to say to the community that there's a lot of people that care. So just reach out. I can help. I can introduce. And if you're ever feeling down, I'm happy to cheer you up. Seriously.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it, and I definitely appreciate it. You definitely have a personal touch in everything you do. I think that's really super important. But anyways, thanks a lot, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show soon. And I look forward to it. Have
Yeah,
a good evening, and thanks a lot.
you too. Take
Thank you,
care.
guys.